Well, we are so excited. We have Pastor Tim and Tori in the house with us.
Yes, we're so grateful.
And we're just excited to sit down and hear a little bit more from you. We never get this opportunity, but you're in Canada.
We are in Canada.
We're in Toronto.
What are we doing?
This is a big deal.
We're here. Yes, and Mike and Ike's.
It's the best.
It's the best.
That's pretty much why you came, right? Just for the candy.
Yeah.
Correct.
Great.
The Canadian candy.
The Canadian candy. Tori's first thing, as soon as she walked in the room, was like, "Where are the Smarties? Where are the Canadian
It's
Smarties?"
so
And we're like,
true.
"They're right
I
there."
didn't even know what those
And
were.
honestly, they're so good.
They are really good.
They are really good.
Better than M&M's or no? Different.
Yeah, I'll give it to it. Canada can have Smarties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I love that. I love that.
I love that.
Well, we're so grateful that you guys are here. We wanted to just hear a little bit more about who you are and what you do. You do so much for this ministry. And so for the people who are watching, I would love for you to just share, what is it exactly that you do and your title, I guess.
Oh, wow. Well, my title's been a lot of things. Currently, as of right now, my name's Tim Summers. That's always been. But my title is the Next Gen Ministries Pastor, which is pretty much like overseeing birth to 22. So
crazy.
e-kids and youth and college. And so all those teams, whether creative or messaging, those pastoral teams, all that, overseeing that for Elevation.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
a
0
little
to
bit.
22.
0 to 22,
Yeah.
you know? It's a developmental stages.
That
People
is.
like to call it family ministry, and I say it's not just family ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also developmental
Yeah.
ministry.
Absolutely.
So,
That's good.
yeah.
That's
Love
so
it.
good.
Well, I have the opportunity to serve with the Next Gen team. So Tim is my boss, which
Yes.
is so fun. And I get to do college ministry and then also get to help pastor Rhythm.
That's
so
incredible.
it's a great time.
Yeah.
So fun.
That's a great time. Can you tell us maybe a little bit on how you got into your role, like how you even got connected to Elevation?
Yes, the question I've been waiting for.
Okay, so the real story is a year ago, actually almost a good year ago. No,
Probably.
maybe 2 years ago. Anyways, Tim called me and I really didn't know him that much. And he was like, "Hey, I have this role. Would you be interested?" And so I had a couple conversations and then I said no.
Decline.
Honestly, it wasn't a no. It just was like I just don't know. The timing doesn't feel right. And then here I am a year later.
Here you are.
And I now get to serve with Tim on the team. And honestly, a role that is so much more of a fit, which is why I know that God's hand is on all of those little details and stuff like that. But so anyways, yeah, a year later, had another like conversation. I was visiting Charlotte, had another conversation, and then it just kind of like turned into this, and I moved down to Charlotte in September.
That's so cool.
So fun.
I love that.
I remember when you moved down to Charlotte and Tiffany was posting, she's like, "Finally, my sister's here." And for those of you who are watching and don't know, Tiffany is your sister.
Yes. Yep, she is. It's so fun. I get to live in the same city as like family, which is great. And Tiff has been trying to get me to come to Elevation for years. Constantly like, "Okay, would you want to come to Elevation?" And my answer has always been yes. Like, I love Elevation. I love like Pastor Stephen and Holly. I love the like mission and vision of the church. I just never knew if there was like a place that I fit. I was always like, "Oh, I don't have any like tactical skills." Like, I felt like I needed to have a very specific like thing that I was really good at that I could bring to the table. And so I was always like, I would love to be part of Elevation. I just don't know where I fit in it. And so it's so crazy to see like however many years later, and here I am.
And here you are.
And I think that's so like God. Like you
Yeah.
think that you don't have what it takes or you don't have
Yeah.
that thing that everyone else has, but God will always make a way and he'll
Yep.
always provide you with the perfect opportunity just for you. I feel like that was kind of both of our stories coming into ministry as well.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't understand. People get paid to work at church. Like that doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I don't look like those people, or I don't feel like I have that thing. But God always is like, no, I was saving you just for this
Yeah.
opportunity.
And you can see the like little thread throughout where I can look
Right.
back over different seasons and see how like God had thread this like story all along. I'm like, oh my goodness, like now to see so many different like parts of that story like being fulfilled is just beautiful. It's so cool.
That's amazing.
What about you, Tim?
How'd I get here, right?
How'd you get here?
Okay, to Elevation specifically. 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, came to the first Inside Elevation that we ever put on, which is like a conference, just like show all the mistakes and miracles that Elevation went through. It was the first time they ever opened up the doors. And I was like, I'm getting tickets. And I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico at that time. Wasn't married yet. And got the tickets, and it was like 8 months in advance. Within that time, got married, and so Rebecca and I, and then our team went to we drove here. It was a 26-hour
No
drive.
way. From
26 hours
Albuquerque?
from Albuquerque. 26 hours with our team.
That's
That's a
crazy.
lot.
And we'd only been married for 4 months at this time.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we loved where we were at. We loved the church, loved the people, everything. We thought we'd be there for a decade. And so we were just going to learn. We went there. The moment I stepped foot on a Lake Norman location,
Wow.
God spoke to me and said, this is where you're supposed to plant your family. This is where you're supposed to be.
Wow.
And you need to come with no assurance of any kind of job or anything. And I went, okay. So meanwhile, I'm looking at my wife and I'm like, hey, are you hearing anything from God? Because at this moment, she's got all the girls with her in a hotel
Wow.
room, and I'm with all the guys. So we're not able to talk about it
Right.
Yeah.
because we got our team there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm like doing signals and cues. I'm like, anything? She's like, what are you talking about? Whatever. So we drive back. It was only a 24-hour event.
Yes.
So we drove back another 26 hours, and we get to Albuquerque, and it was 9 p.m., and we're laying in bed, and I said, babe, I got something to tell you, but I don't say anything until I'm done. 90 minutes later, I said, all right, I'm done. And she
Wow.
just started laughing. And I was like, I just shared my whole heart to you,
Right.
and you're laughing in my face. And she said, that's exactly what God told
Wow.
me. I just didn't think you would
Wow.
leave ministry for it, like full-time ministry.
Wow.
And I said, are
Wow.
you serious?
That's so crazy.
2 weeks later, we resigned.
2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, we resigned. We told our pastor. As we were telling our pastor, the morning we wake up to tell our pastor we're going to resign, my wife tells me we're pregnant.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
And the first thing, this dead serious, the first thing I did was I grabbed my head, I slid down the wall, and I was like, does this mean we're not going to North Carolina? It was the first thing I said
Wow.
when I found out we were having a baby. So that's why I keep having more to just make
Right.
up for that.
Yeah.
And
Better
so
reactions.
she's like, nah, we're definitely going. I said, okay. So we tell
Wow.
our pastors. 2 weeks later, we move out here with $43 in our bank account and pregnant.
Yeah.
And we already had Brody at that
Right.
time. So we're about to have 2 kids, no job, no apartment,
Wow.
no nothing.
Wow.
And we're in a U-Haul. That's all the money we had was to get a U-Haul.
Wow.
And so we went there. As we're pulling in, we get a tweet from LB saying, hey, would you like to go to lunch? Heard you're moving down here. And we didn't know LB at that time, but I was like, hey, free lunch. We can do it. Let's do this. And as we were heading to that lunch, we get a call from an apartment saying, hey, we actually had a spot just open up. We usually don't give it to anyone who is not in town. And I said, well, we're in town. We're in town. They're like, great. We go meet with them. We get the apartment.
No way.
And we're like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, great. Still ain't got a job though. I'm applying to be a manager at Lowe's.
Wow.
Okay. And I go to lunch with LB, and he's like, you should do our apprenticeship program. I was like, what's that? He's like, tells me everything about it. And I was like, does it pay? And he's like, actually, it does. He's like, it doesn't pay a lot, but it pays.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Did the application 2 days later, got accepted in. Never had to work at Lowe's one day
No
of my
way.
life.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
Isn't that
amazing.
crazy?
That
What
is
a story.
crazy.
That's
It's
beautiful.
wild.
Yeah, I've never heard that
It's
story.
wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Look at God. Look at
Yeah.
the just provision over your life and your family's life, and
Yeah.
now to see what you're doing.
So
that's
cool.
That's incredible.
It's so crazy.
I love that
is. That's such
story.
a ram in the thicket story.
Yeah.
Like God was so
He was there.
there.
Just waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting if I'd be obedient.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
That's such a word too, like obedience. And
Yeah.
how quick 2 weeks? Like it
Yeah.
has taken me years sometimes to move on a word from God. But clearly
true.
When
he
we
wanted
heard
you to
it,
move.
man, we heard it in that moment. And then she said, I heard the exact same thing. I said, we can't. We have to
Right.
go now.
yeah.
That's
We can't
incredible.
wait.
Yeah. That's
So-
awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys both have very unique ministries, like things pastoring 0 to 22 is so unique. Pastoring rhythm is so unique. And so I would love to know, like, what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis? Like, Tori, you were just on tour with Rhythm on the Lecrae tour. And so how do you pastor in such unique situations?
Honestly, it's been so fun getting to hang with the Rhythm team and getting to pastor them. I mean, it's relationship. It comes down to, like, do I have enough relationship built where they want to trust what's going on in their life with me? And so that way we can talk through and see, okay, what is it like? What is God saying? How do we move forward? And it's been such a sweet season getting to get to know all of them and then getting to, like, walk alongside them. The Rhythm team, I mean, they're young, they're, like, passionate, they're excited, they're, like, ready for anything that God has. And I think that is the best place for, like, anybody to be, is that, like, open-handed place of, like, okay, Lord, like, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? How can I say yes? How can I keep saying yes? And so that's been such a, like, a cool part of getting to pastor them, is just getting to walk alongside all of those yeses. Okay, like, what does it look like to say yes when it comes to, like, relationships or different opportunities or learning how to serve, learning humility, like, all the things like that, which is really cool. And so got to, like, stop in with them on some of their tour dates, which is really fun, and then getting to, like, just check in throughout the week. The normal, once tour is done and it's, like, the day-to-day, that's also where, like, real pastoral ministry really happens. It's in the, like, mundane moments when life feels, like, kind of quiet, when all of a sudden everything else sounds really noisy. So getting to walk with people through that is so special, and really cool. And also, anytime there's drama, you know.
Yeah, a lot of drama with young people, you know. It's probably
I'm kidding.
keeps us
Great.
on our toes.
It
That's
does.
what it is.
Sure does.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, I have the privilege of being able to, like, kind of see it from 30,000 feet. You know, I've got a great, incredible team. Obviously, Tori's a part of that. Elizabeth Crowder's kind of heads up a lot of our kids ministry. Gina and AJ are very heavily involved in youth. And so really operating through great leaders is how it kind of the day-to-day for me. Which is interesting. It's like a different muscle, you know? It's like, oh, delegation's so easy. Well, you're having to teach people how to say the things that you would say and how to move a room the way that you would move a room. But they have a different personality. They have a different background. They have a different longevity. They have a different voice. You don't want to rob them of their voice. You don't want to rob them of their leadership skills or the things that they've been called or gifted into. But at the same time, they need to get the same energy. They need to say the same things with the same spirit, right? And so how do you do that? I'm still trying to figure it out. But I think that's, like, the muscle right now of my kind of day-to-day, as opposed to the very tactical pieces of it. And so it is kind of, I will say the most fun part is to watch these guys go through things that I went through alone.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
hey, you're going to be okay. Just don't worry. Like, it's going to be fine. You're not alone, you know, kind of thing. So, you know, Elevation Youth was so fresh. I mean, it didn't have anything. You know what I'm saying? And so when we kind of started, we were just making up stuff. We didn't know what was going to hit, what was working. We didn't know what was biblical at the time. I mean, we were just trying to get kids in the room, okay? And so now everything's a little more, like, substantial. We've got teams of people, resources, all that. And so now, you know, I watch people kind of go through some things. And I'm like, hey, it's going to be okay. It has been worse, I promise. And so that's probably been the most fun part. But yeah, exercising a little bit of that new muscle of working through other people, and watching their gifts kind of align with what this church has to offer and this leadership. Obviously, our leadership is world class, top tier, and so them kind of, like, experiencing that for themselves is such a huge honor for me whenever I get to lead leaders. So
Well,
That's very cool.
we I know that we both look up to you in so many different ways. You guys are both great leaders, but leading people can be really challenging. It's not easy. People are people, and there's always things that are going to come up. So I would just love to ask, like, what's one practical like leadership advice that you have for maybe a new leader, or I don't know, just what's one thing that you found like an anchor for you when it comes to leading people and guiding people and shepherding people?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, so I'm gonna use it. I had when I was a young leader, I think I was a year and a half into ministry. I was asking all these questions. I was hungry, and I would say that's a good one. Be hungry. Hunger is different than passionate, by the way, but being hungry for something. And I was just asking questions, and one guy just looked at me and was like, "Yo, you are okay. You're ambitious," is what he looked at me and says. "You're very ambitious." He said, "I think what you're going to have to learn how to do is to keep your head down."
It's great.
And he said, "When you're 29, put your head back up." I was like, "Oh, okay." I don't know. I think it kind of made me upset back then, but man, it's something that's always stuck with me. And it was crazy. I was telling y'all earlier, when I was 29 was when I became like the, youth pastor at Elevation. And, just to then look and go, wow, look at what all God has done. You would probably be a greater leader if you were talking young leaders, you'd probably be a greater leader if you kept your head down more.
Yeah. It's great.
And in reliance to the Holy Spirit and knowing that He's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
Not keep your head down and be ignorant to everything, right? But keep your head down and knowing like, hey, the ambition,
So good.
the hunger, the passion, don't worry, it's not going to go to waste.
Right.
Yeah.
God wants to use that. But let Him do it in His timing. And so just say yes and be obedient in the littlest things, because everything that you want to do 15 years from now is connected to your yes and to your obedience right now.
So good.
Whether you're
That's so
15
good.
or whether you're
So
23,
Yeah.
it is connected to your obedience in this very moment. I mean, you looked at me 30 minutes ago and said, "Will you do this podcast?" I was like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm here. I'll do the podcast. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, this was our first choice. Whatever. You know what? What the heck?" I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." You will be way more blessed when you are just being obedient to the things right now. And you'll look back 5 years and go, "How did this all happen?"
Right.
You kept your head down and you let God lead.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
that's what I say.
That's
I
great.
love that.
so
Yes,
good.
I would honestly echo that 100%. And I'd maybe add on, so like keep your head down and keep your heart tender. That's like a constant phrase that I always go back to, because leadership is relational. It's people. It's messy, and it can be really easy to think that leadership has to be really like harsh or like I would even use the word like maybe really strong, but strong leadership is being able to have a humble heart, being able to connect with people on a really like real level, genuine level, because leadership is not just like people being willing to follow you, but leadership is also learning how to follow the voice of the Lord. And so it's that like open hand, like heart tender, like, Lord, keep me like walking humbly with you every single step of the way. And I like to always say, like, I always picture the way that I feel like God is like called me to lead as this, like, hey, let me like grab the hand of the person next to me. I'm not like across the room, like, hey guys, come over here. Like, let me grab your hand and let's walk through this together. Let's walk together. And I think that is like one of the best things. And just that same thing of, it's every single yes that you have. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too big. Like, be willing to say yes in every scenario of it.
That's true, because some people will say, that's easy, right? Oh, nothing's too small. Okay, I need to clean the toilets.
Right.
When my campus pastor asked me, okay, yeah, cool. But you know what? I think nowadays it is now nothing's too big.
Yeah.
Because our insecurities and go, no, there's no way I could do that.
Totally.
There's no way that I could do that. And so I think for a lot of people that may be listening, it might be like, look, there is nothing too big.
Right.
God does want to do that in your life.
Yeah.
And you've got to even say yes to those moments.
Yeah.
That's so
That's
good.
good. That's good.
So good. I'm You guys are ministering to me more than you know right now. I'm sitting here like, I have no words. Just
I
thank
love
you.
it.
Yeah,
Like, seriously, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's such
That's
a joy to have you,
Yeah.
and we're just so excited for all that's to come for Elevation Church and for both of your ministries.
Yeah,
so
we're
thank you for
excited.
spending this time with us.
Yeah.
Yes,
Love
thank
it.
y'all for having us.
Guys. So
Appreciate it.
fun.